and welcome to my channel. Today I'm back with another spring video where I'll be sharing 5 spring decor DIYs. As usual, each project is easy and affordable to create. I really hope that you enjoyed today's video, and now let's go ahead and get right into it. First up is DIY number 1. For this project, I'm using this square unfinished wood piece, and this one did come from Michael's. The first thing I'm doing is painting all of the outside edges with my matte acrylic paint from Folk Art in the color Italian Sage, and then I also painted the entire backside this same color. I did not paint the front side because I'm going to be adding a piece of cardstock to that side. For the cardstock that I'm using, it's this really pretty one here. It is from Hobby Lobby and it's from the Paper Studio brand. It did come in a sampler paper pack. Now I'm just placing the block onto the paper and tracing around it so I know where I need to cut. And I did end up cutting it a little bit larger than the block so that I was able to sand the edges off later on. Next, I'm using a paintbrush to apply my Mod Podge onto the front side of my block. Once I have a good amount of that on, I'm just placing my piece of paper on and then making sure that there's no bubbles underneath. Once it dried down a little bit, I used some sandpaper to sand around all of the edges and take away the excess paper that was hanging over the sides. I love doing it this way because it does just give me a nice crisp edge. I did end up having to go back through and touch up the paint around the sides since I did sand a little bit of that paint away. I decided to use a second piece of cardstock, which is this cream color one here, and I cut it down just a little bit smaller than the flower cardstock because I'm going to be layering it over top. I'm also going to be using one of these stamps from Dollar Tree. These are so beautiful, but I ended up going with the bird that you can see me cutting out here. So I just cut that out so it was a little bit easier for me to use individually. And then I just used my black ink and pressed the stamp right onto the ink to make sure that there's ink on it. And then I was very careful when pressing this down onto my cardstock. I made sure that it was centered and then just very, very slowly pressed it down so that it didn't have any smudging. I was also very slow when removing my stamp to prevent any smudging, and I just love the vintage look of this. Next, I ended up adding a second wood piece, this square one here. This one is a little bit thinner, and as you can see here, I'm applying some Mod Podge with a paintbrush, and then I got really lucky because my piece of cardstock that I did my bird stamp on ended up being the exact same size, and that's exactly what I needed. So here I'm just applying that piece of cardstock to my piece of wood, and then I'm using some hot glue to attach that piece of wood right in the center of my wood block. I did this because I wanted to have the bird look a little bit more raised off of the wood block. To add some detail, I'm using this tan and cream color ribbon from Hobby Lobby, and I'm cutting it to the length of the top wood piece, and I cut 2 strips of that ribbon. Then I wanted to have the 2 seams on the side cut off, so here I'm doing that. And then once those are cut off, I'm then cutting my strip of ribbon in half so that I'll have 2 different strips. I'm doing the exact same thing to the second strip that I had originally cut so that all together I'll have 4 small strips of this ribbon. Now I'm going to be using some hot glue to attach all 4 strips of ribbon around all 4 sides of my top wood piece right over top of the cream color cardstock. And then once I have those all attached, I am going to be using these gold gold tacks, and these ones I believe are from Hobby Lobby, and I'm just going to be pressing those in all of the corners of the top wood piece. Once I have all 4 of the tacks in, this piece is complete. This is what it looks like all finished. I think it turned out so cute and it was really easy to do. Next is DIY number 2. For this one, I'm using one of these unfinished wood rounds from Hobby Lobby. You can get these in a pack, and the first thing I'm doing is painting the entire surface with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. I'm going to be using 5 of these unfinished wood potted flowers, and these I got in a pack at Dollar Tree. I'm going to be painting the stem and leaves of all 5 of them with the Spanish moss colored chalk paint from Folk Art. And then as you'll notice, I'm leaving the pots on these completely bare because I'm going to be covering those up later on. For the flowers, I thought it would be cute to do a few different colors. So for 2 of them, I'm using the color Wild Rose. Then for just one of the flowers, I'm using the color Glacier. And then for the final 2 flowers, I'm doing the color Yellow Ochre, and they are all from the brand Folk Art. For this project, I'm also going to be using 5 of these unfinished wood pots. These ones also came in a pack at Dollar Tree, and I'm going to be using my Folk Art wood tint in the color Walnut for all 5 of these flower pots. I'm going to be adding these over top of the other ones that are attached to flowers just to give a little bit more of a popped look so that the flowers look like they're actually sitting inside of the pots. On my sign, I wanted to say hello spring, so I'm going to be using this unfinished wood word cutout that says hello, and this one is from Joann Fabrics. And then to spell out the word spring, I'm using these wood letters, and these ones are from Hobby Lobby. For the word hello, I'm going to be painting that with the Folk Art chalk paint in the color Sage. And then for all of the letters to spell out the word spring, I'm painting those with the color Wild Rose. After I had everything all painted and the paint was dry, I started attaching everything to my wood round. I did the hello word in the top left-hand side, and then I did the word spring in the middle with the flowers right underneath. I did leave a space on the top right-hand side open because I'm going to be adding some details to that spot later on. As you can see, all of the pots are plain, and then this is where I'm adding all of the pots that I stained right over top of them, just so that it sticks out a little bit and it looks like the flowers are actually inside of the pot. I just thought that this looked a little bit better than just the plain pots with the flowers on them. Next, I'm using this yellow and cream color striped ribbon from Hobby Lobby to create my double bow. I am going to be making it a little bit larger, and I just used my 4 fingers on my hand to give me a good size. And then once I have this double bow created, I am going to be making a second double bow. I'm then going to be making a smaller double bow with this ribbon here from Hobby Lobby. I wrapped it around my 2 fingers twice, and then taking the end of it and poking it through the hole in between my 2 fingers at the bottom. I'm pulling that through, and then that piece I'm taking up and over my 2 fingers and then looping it through the little loop at the bottom and then pulling it tight. I hope that explains how to do the double bow. That's the best way I could describe it, and I just wanted to give you a little bit of a tutorial, and that's exactly the same way I did the bigger bow as well. For the ends of the bow, I wanted it to be a V shape, so I just cut those into the V shape, and then I'm going to be hot gluing the striped ribbon down first in the top right hand side of the sign, and then the smaller bow right over top of the striped one. For the very last step, I'm going to be creating a hanger with 2 strands of jute, and then I'm just using some hot glue to attach the hanger along the back side of my sign. This is the sign all finished. It's a cute, colorful sign, perfect for spring, and it was really easy and affordable to create. Now for DIY number 3. For this one, I'm going to be using one of these small wood rounds, and this came from Hobby Lobby, and I believe they come in a pack of 4. And I'm just going to be painting the entire thing with my Waverly chalk paint in the color Ivory. I'm also going to be using 2 of these unfinished wood mini candlesticks from Hobby Lobby. These also come in a pack of 4, and I'm painting them with that same ivory colored chalk paint. After the paint is all dried, I'm then going to be using some hot glue on the tops of both candlesticks to glue the tops together. And then I'm going to be using some more hot glue to attach the bottom of one of the candlesticks to the center of the wood round. I'm then going to be using this tin bucket. This did come from Hobby Lobby, and I'm hot gluing that right on the top of the bottom of the candlestick. I'm then adding some of this floral foam from Dollar Tree right in the center of my bucket. And then to fill the bucket, I'm going to be making a little succulent garden, and I'm using these mini succulents from Hobby Lobby. And I'm also going to be using some of these longer succulents, also from Hobby Lobby. And I ended up mixing in some other succulents that I just had in my craft stash as well. But I just used some pliers to cut the succulents down so that they were a little bit easier to work with. And then once I would have them cut down, I would just start placing them inside of the floral foam. And I started with these smaller ones first, and I placed those in the center. And then around all of those mini succulents, I decided to hot glue some of this reindeer moss from Dollar Tree. And then after I had the reindeer moss in, then I was able to start just working with some of the longer succulents and then succulents that I had in my craft stash. And I just started hot gluing them around wherever I think that they were gonna look good. And I did end up cutting some of the longer succulents down quite a bit so that they weren't hanging super low around the bucket. Once I had the succulents in, I decided I wanted to give the wood on this piece a little bit of distressing. So I used some of the color Maui Sand, and I just dry brushed it on all of the wood to finish off the project. And this is what it looks like all finished. I absolutely love this project. It would be perfect for spring and also for summer, and it would go perfect on a tabletop or a tiered tray. Moving into DIY number 4, for this one I'm going to be using one of these small canvases from Dollar Tree, and the first thing I'm going to be doing is using one of my utility knives to cut the canvas off of the frame, and I'm just doing this very slowly and carefully so that I don't cut myself. Once I have all of the canvas scored around the staples, I just started pulling the canvas off, and I really wasn't too worried if I tore the canvas because I'm not going to be using it for this project. I'm also going to be using some of this chicken wire that came in a roll. I believe this is from Hobby Lobby a couple years ago, and it's the perfect size to fit right along the back side of my frame. So here I just measured it out to the length that I needed, and then I just used my pliers to cut down the chicken wire. For the frame, I wanted it to be a really light color, so I'm painting it with my Waverly paint in the color Ivory. I'm then attaching the chicken wire along the back side of the frame, and I'm using my staple gun to attach it. Next, I'm going to be using one of these bottles from Dollar Tree, and I'm just removing the cork that's in the top of the bottle because I do not need it for this project. And then I'm going to be using some of this burlap that I had in my craft stash, and I am going to be a little bit off frame for this, so I'm sorry about that, but I just measured the burlap fabric to fit around the bottom 3/4 of my bottle, and then once I had the burlap cut down to size, I hot glued it around my bottle. After I had the burlap attached, I did want to add a little bit of color, so I'm just attaching this green and white checked ribbon right around the center of where I attached the burlap, and then just use some hot glue to secure it into place. I'm then adding some of this thin white rope around the center of the checked ribbon, and then I use some hot glue to hold that into place along the back side. And then I'm going to be taking those 2 pieces of rope that I have, and I'm just going to be placing those through the chicken wire, and then I'm also going to be bringing them back up and through the front of the chicken wire again. And this is just going to hold that bottle into place. But then once I have the 2 pieces of rope wrapped back through to the front side, I'm then going to be tying the rope in the center at the very top of where the burlap is on the bottle. And like I said, this is just going to hold the bottle into place so that it doesn't move around. Of course, I needed to add some florals, so I'm using some of these dainty pink ones that are from Michaels. And then I also wanted to add a stand for this piece, so I'm going to be using this scrap piece of wood that I had in my craft stash, and it's about 4 inches in length, and I'm painting that with the same ivory colored paint. Once the paint was all dry, I'm then going to be hot gluing the frame right to the center of this scrap wood piece. And because I like to pretty much distress everything, I'm adding some of the Maui sand color from Folk Art, and I'm just dry brushing that around the entire ivory colored parts on this piece. This is the piece all finished. What I love about this one is it's a little bit different, but it's still super cute and perfect for spring. Next is the fifth and final DIY for today. For this one, I'm going to be using this grapevine wreath that I picked up from Dollar Tree. And the first thing I'm doing, obviously, is taking the tag and the hanger portion of the wreath off. I'm then going to be using this cream color fabric that I also picked up from Dollar Tree. And I'm just going to be folding it along the top side a little bit so that there's not any frayed edges on the fabric. And then I'm going to be flipping my wreath over and just wrapping the fabric pretty much around the bottom portion of my wreath. Now, I'm not really sure what I was thinking when I was creating this project, but there's probably a way better way to do this than the way that I'm doing it, but I'm going to show you guys how I did it anyway. So I basically just hot glued the fabric around the bottom half of the wreath, just using hot glue in random places as I was folding the fabric over. Not really sure why I did it this way, but I did. So I'm sure you've had projects that you've done where you go back and you're not sure what you were thinking when you made it. This is the project. I'm really not sure. So anyway, you can see here, I just keep folding over and using more hot glue, folding over, using more hot glue. I did leave a little bit of a pocket though, so that I'm able to fit some florals inside of that pocket so that you'll be able to see them along the front side. I'm then gonna add some of this green and cream color ribbon along the very top of that fabric that I just added. And once again, I'm using some more hot glue along the back side. Pretty sure there's a better way to do this, but hot glue seemed to be the correct way while I was doing this. I then added a little bit of hot glue underneath that ribbon on the front just to make sure that it stayed in place. And then the next thing I did, I think I lost the clip, but I'll just let you know that I did add some of this lace ribbon from Dollar Tree along the very top of that striped ribbon and then along the very bottom edge of that ribbon as well, just to give it a little bit more of a dainty look. Then for the florals that I'm using, these tulips are from Michaels and they're from the Ashland brand. I ended up just cutting each stem of the tulip down so that I could work with each stem individually. I then placed each tulip stem inside of that fabric pocket that I had created earlier. And then for the very last step in this project, I ended up just adding a jute hanger to the very top of the wreath. This is what the wreath looks like all finished. I think it ended up turning out okay. The backside, however, is not the best looking, but they all can't be winners, right? I really hope that you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, I hope that you will consider subscribing. Please be sure to hit the notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of my future videos. And I would love to hear which project was your favorite. Thank you so much for watching.